Well, welcome back, everybody. As I told you, we are going to interview now another one of our workshop presenters. Elizabeth, why don't you introduce yourself to the community and then let them know what you do and how it connects to foster care and adoption.
Sure. Hello, my name's Elizabeth Studwell. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am also an adoptee myself, a transracial adoptee from Colombia. And I primarily now clinically work with adoptive families. Historically, I have worked in the foster care system and both in the United States and in Colombia. I lived there for a time. But yeah, now at this point, I work fully for a smaller private practice, and we focus in on adoption and attachment and identity and the intersection of experiences, and really helping parents to support children as they go through these different developmental stages and coming to be kind of finding who they are as people.
So, what got you to use what you went through in your journey to become a clinical psychologist for people to help like it was like a circular what made you do that, because you could have just been a clinical psychologist for anybody, but
Well,
why specifically for this?
that's actually a really good question because I remember when I first started, I in fact specifically decided I was not going to work in the area of adoption. And then as time went on, it became increasingly clear that most clinicians don't really fully understand adoption and the various deep dynamics that are a part of it. And I had a lot of people kind of would say, I've seen numerous therapists and nobody understands, and it's been really painful. And at some point, and it was earlier in my career, I would say, but it just became really important work to be doing. That if I have the knowledge from the inside out, it just became important to shift over and support these families because I've felt some of that pain or challenges too along the way.
Do you find that the families appreciate the fact that you do have that background, or is that something that I know a lot of psychologists keep their personal side to themselves, but do you kind of cross over just a little bit to let them know I understand you?
I think that's been its own journey for me as well, of when do I disclose and why do I disclose. Um, I will say at this point, I'm obviously comfortable disclosing. And in particular, I find that it's really important to disclose to adoptive families, both parents and children, because it can actually go both ways. Sometimes families feel really that that's an important connection and that feels supportive to them, even though our experiences can be very different. And other families, I worry that sometimes for parents, they might find like, oh, maybe I can't say that. Maybe she won't understand. So that's something sometimes we have to talk through, which I can understand too. So it's something that that has gone, yeah, I don't know, different directions, different times, depending on the family.
So I was looking over your bio, and in there, you explained that you had some powerful experience when you worked at an orphanage in Colombia. Can you explain a little bit more about why you went there and how that was so important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. At one point, my clinical caseload was almost exclusively Spanish speaking families, and I was really having a hard time communicating with parents. Many of the children could speak English, but parents were unable to. And I just felt like it's such a disservice. It's so important to be able to support parents as well as support children. And I wanted to then really, it was important to learn Spanish in a way that I never had before. And I guess it was also maybe underneath somewhere deeper that I really wanted to go back to where I had been from, where I was born. I hadn't been back ever. And so I bought a one-way ticket, and I figured I would either, if I got nervous or scared, I could just come back whenever I wanted, or I could stay. And I ended up staying for over a year. And trying pretty hard not to come back, but here I am anyways. And it was an incredibly powerful experience. I learned Spanish every morning and took classes, and then volunteered at my own orphanage every evening. And then ultimately, as a clinical psychologist, there happened to be that a few of their psychologists left, and I was actually hired full time to work at my orphanage for a period of time as they were kind of yeah, they were just needing a lot of support, and I was there to be able to do it, and it was just such a powerful experience.
That's amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate it. What I wanted to ask you was, let's go to the topic that you're speaking at the conference. It's called Attachment and Identity in Transracial Adoption, and how the adoptee and family are impacted. You want to give us just a little bit of a synopsis of what everyone's going to be hearing from you?
I wish I had a more clear, succinct way to kind of put it into a nice little package. But I think I'll just start with, in my experience, these are two of the most significant components that I both see and have personally experienced that play roles in the adoptive experience, which is identity and attachment. Who are we, and how do we relate with other people? Especially at early ages when we have lost the initial attachment figures, right? So in utero, all humans are being created in order to attach to the one woman who is creating them. And all adoptees do have that same shared experience of not being able to be raised by that woman. Fathers are a little, it's a slightly different connection, although of course really important. So I've created this presentation, and I've given it a number of times, and it keeps evolving as I learn more and more, as people experience other things and they become important. But these are really the fundamental pieces, I think, of how do we really support young people as they go through this experience? How can we help strengthen a sense of internal sense of self? And how can we strengthen that ability to both be vulnerable and to accept the love and parenting that parents really so deeply want to be giving?
Do you happen to have, and I've opened it up to mentors and books. I love asking if there was any books that helped you on your journey, or books that you recommend to others for their journey. And then at some point, some people opened it up and said what mentors, the people that they've looked up to on their own journey. Do you happen to have any, either or all?
Really good question. I would say honestly, for a long time, it was a little intimidating to read deep dive adoption focused books. I've always had that experience of like, I live it and breathe it so much that sometimes too much is in fact too much. I do offer a number of book options for adoptive parents. I think there's quite a difference of what I might recommend to another adoptee versus what I might recommend to an adoptive parents. And in terms of mentors, in some ways I really haven't had that. I've been really blessed to have, in my time when I went to live in Colombia, I amazingly met a number of other adult adoptees who were returning to our orphanage from many different countries. And they have become my siblings. And so they've been deep support system. But I'm actually one of the older. And so I sometimes give a little more support than, but maybe that's not true. We really deeply support each other, but no mentors, I would say. Yeah, maybe a wish to be a mentor then for others sometimes.
Why is it so? Why is your topic so important for people to know? That's basically what we're getting at.
I guess my sense is that these are so fundamental, and there's sometimes, although I imagine these are not topics that are new to anybody because they're so fundamental in the area of adoption. Um, it can sometimes be really helpful to hear things talked about in all different ways. Because if I can just help give a little bit of information or a little bit of an experience of what it is like from the inside out, that really is my goal. And to help parents better understand, to help other clinicians, really feel it and challenge their own identity to see what it would be like, that can go a long way, actually. So I think it's just fundamental to, yeah, and not, and always helpful to hear in new ways, even if you've heard it 100 times.